Imagine a man who walked into a gym with nothing, no stable family, no money, no prospects, and walked out as one of the most recognized and admired figures in the world of bodybuilding. That man is Kai Greene. Known by the nicknames he helped build through sweat and sheer dedication, the Predator and the People's Champion, Kai isn't just an athlete. He's a phenomenon. And today, you're going to understand exactly why that name carries so much weight, both on and off the stage. Kai Greene was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, one of the most iconic and, at the same time, most unforgiving neighborhoods in the United States. But don't be fooled into thinking that because life was tough for most kids growing up there, it was equally tough for Kai. For him, it was far worse. At just 6 years old, Kai lost the support of his parents and found himself thrown into a system that, in theory, was supposed to protect him, but in practice, rarely comes close to replacing what a real family provides. From an early age, life demanded a price from Kai that was far too high for such a young child to pay. For over a decade, Kai moved from foster home to foster home, carrying with him not just a bag of belongings, but an enormous emotional weight. Growing up without a solid family foundation leaves deep marks on anyone, and Kai was no exception. The constant feeling of not belonging anywhere, of being just another number in a cold, bureaucratic system, shaped his personality in ways that took him years to fully understand and work through. That persistent sense of exclusion showed up directly in his behavior at school. Kai faced serious disciplinary issues, coming dangerously close to being expelled from both schools and the very foster homes where he lived. Not because he was malicious, but because he was a kid in pain, without direction, and without anyone who truly believed in him. When the world around you offers no structure, it's only natural for the chaos inside to spill out. And that was the silent battle Kai fought every single day. It was in the middle of that turbulence that weight training entered Kai Greene's life like a quiet form of salvation. The gym became the one place where he felt in control, where hard work had an immediate payoff, and where nobody needed to know your story to respect you. Lifting didn't require him to have a family, a permanent address, or a clean past. It just required him to show up, put in the work, and keep going. And at that, Kai was unstoppable. What could have been the end of the road for so many, the orphanhood, the instability, the isolation, became the launching pad for an extraordinary story. Training gave Kai not just muscle, but identity, purpose, and a reason to wake up every morning with a clear goal in mind. At 13 years old, in 1988, Kai Greene took his first step toward his destiny. At the time, he was still a teenager without a clear direction, carrying every scar that life in the foster care system had left behind. But when he began training with weights more seriously, something shifted, not just in his body, but in his mind. Training stopped being just an emotional outlet and started becoming a calling. The gym, which had once been a refuge from the chaos, was now revealing itself as the stage where his story would be written. What stood out from the very beginning was the insane way Kai's body responded to training. While most teenagers took months to notice any real physical change, Kai was progressing at a pace that was completely off the charts. His exceptional genetics acted like a natural accelerator, building muscle mass and proportions that simply weren't expected from someone his age. Other young guys trained right alongside him and could clearly see the difference. Kai wasn't just more dedicated, he was different, and his physique made that undeniable with every passing week. It was during this period that a pivotal figure entered Kai's journey, his 7th grade English teacher. In a world where nobody seemed to see any potential in that troubled foster kid, this teacher was the exception. He recognized something special in Kai, a rare combination of a gifted physique, quiet determination, and a hunger for purpose. And he didn't just offer praise, he took action. He introduced Kai to the world of competition and encouraged him to enter youth bodybuilding shows. Sometimes, all a person needs is someone who believes in them before they believe in themselves. The impact of that encouragement was immediate and overwhelming. Over the next 5 years, Kai Greene completely dominated the junior bodybuilding circuit. Competition after competition, he stepped on stage and left his rivals behind, opponents who, more often than not, weren't even in the same league when it came to his level of physical development. Winning became routine, but Kai never took his victories for granted. Every trophy was proof that the path he had chosen was real, it was possible, and it was his. For a young man who had grown up belonging to nothing, belonging at the top was a feeling that was brand new and incredibly powerful. At 19 years old, in 1994, Greene accomplished something many athletes spend years chasing: his first pro card, earned at the NDA American Nationals, a natural bodybuilding federation. For a young man who had grown up without a family structure and found in the sport his only compass, that moment carried enormous symbolic weight. It wasn't just a card. It was confirmation that the path he had chosen, even when nobody believed in him, was the right one. Proof that the sacrifice had a destination. With that first taste of professionalism under his belt, didn't sit back and get comfortable. In 1996, he made a bold move and transitioned to the NPC, a far more competitive environment packed with highly conditioned athletes and superior training infrastructure. A lot of people at the time might have questioned that decision: why leave a world where you already stood out for one where you'd have to start over? But always understood that growth requires discomfort. Easy environments produce average athletes. He wanted to be great, and to do that, he needed to measure himself against the best. His first major test at that new level came in 1997, when just 22 years old, stepped on stage at the NPC Team Universe Championships. Competing against more experienced, established athletes, he took a solid second place. To some, that might look like a loss. In reality, it was a clear message to the bodybuilding world: Greene was coming. In the years that followed, he continued refining his physique and his strategy, dealing with results that weren't always what he wanted, but never losing sight of the bigger picture he was building for his career. Then, in 1999, everything clicked. Returned to the NPC Team Universe Championships and this time left no room for debate. He won the competition with authority and earned his IFBB Pro card, the most prestigious credential in all of bodybuilding. At 24 years old, he had crossed the line that separates good athletes from true professionals. That was his ticket to the most competitive stage in the sport. Later that same year, made his professional IFBB debut at the World Championships held in Slovakia, finishing in 4th place. For many athletes, that result would be cause for celebration. For it was fuel. He left that competition determined to come back harder, more conditioned, and more seasoned. Every point that separated him from the top wasn't seen as a gap, it was a roadmap for evolution. After years of building his foundation and stacking up experience on the pro circuit, Greene finally reached the level he had always been chasing. Between 2010 and 2016, he entered the most dominant stretch of his career, racking up 7 victories at the highest level of competition, including 4 titles at the legendary Arnold Classic, one of the most prestigious events in bodybuilding and widely regarded as the second biggest trophy in the sport. 4-time champion at an event of that magnitude isn't luck. It isn't a coincidence. The Arnold Classic alone would be enough to cement any athlete's legacy. But wanted more. He wanted the Mr. Olympia, the pinnacle of bodybuilding, the title that separates great champions from the true immortals of the sport. And it was on that stage that one of the most fascinating and, at the same time, most painful chapters of his career unfolded. Competed at the Mr. Olympia multiple times, landing in 2nd place on 3 separate occasions, a result that showcased his greatness, but also highlighted the single step he could never quite climb. That step had a name: Phil Heath. The rivalry between Greene and Phil Heath is widely considered one of the greatest, if not the greatest, in bodybuilding history. Perhaps the last truly epic showdown the sport has seen at that level, the old-school fans still talk about with a sense of nostalgia. 2 completely different athletes in style, presence, and personality, yet equally jaw-dropping in their own right. Heath with his near-perfect symmetry, with his overwhelming mass and unmatched stage presence. Every time these two stood on stage together, it was an event unto itself, the kind that made the whole bodybuilding world stop and pay attention. What made that rivalry burn even hotter was the fact that many experts and fans genuinely believed had the physique and the ability to win. There were years when the gap between the two seemed razor thin, when the outcome could have easily gone the other way. But the Sando Trophy kept going home with Phil Heath. And that fueled a debate that goes way beyond scores and medals. Greene closed out that chapter of his career without bodybuilding's ultimate title, but with a legacy that very few athletes can claim. 7 elite-level victories, 4 Arnold Classic titles, 3 Mr. Olympia runner-up finishes, and a passionate fan base that showed up for him like no other athlete could inspire. The people's champion may never have received the trophy that many believed he deserved, but he earned something no panel of judges can ever take away: the genuine respect and admiration of everyone who witnessed every single battle. But all the greatness the world saw on those stages didn't come from nowhere. Behind the jaw-dropping physique and the almost mythical aura Kai brought to every competition, there was a far harder story, a journey marked by challenges that began long before the lights, the poses, and the crowds. Behind every great rise to glory story, there's a layer the public rarely gets to see: the darkest moments that come before the light. Kai Greene was no different. Before he became a globally admired athlete, he faced a brutal financial reality, the kind that pushes people into situations they never imagined they'd find themselves in. To pay the bills and keep food on the table, Kai worked as a stripper at gay nightclubs in New York City. It wasn't the path he had dreamed of, but it was the path available to a young man with no support system, no family, and no clear alternatives. It was in that context of financial desperation that an episode occurred that would mark his life forever. On one particularly rough night, broken with no immediate way out, Kai accepted an offer from a man to appear in an adult video, one that became publicly known for involving a grapefruit. Regardless of anyone's judgment, the context matters. This was a young man in an extremely vulnerable situation, doing what he believed he had to do to survive. The line between choice and necessity, in moments like that, is far thinner than it looks from the outside. The situation took on a much larger dimension when the video surfaced online years later, right in the middle of Kai's rise to the top. What had been a chapter from his past came back full force, triggering a wave of ridicule and criticism that shook his public image. The sport, which so often preaches resilience and overcoming adversity, showed its ugliest side by using that episode as ammunition against an athlete who had built everything through grit and determination. The impact of that scandal went well beyond social media and mean-spirited comments. Many insiders within the bodybuilding world still speculate to this day that the incident negatively influenced the judges' decisions at the Mr. Olympia, contributing to Kai never bringing that top trophy home. It's a theory that has never been officially confirmed, but it persists with force precisely because so many people believe that, physically, Kai had everything it took to win. The most honest and courageous response to that question came in 2022, when the documentary Kai brought the subject out into the open without filters. In the film, major names in bodybuilding, including his biggest rival Phil Heath and the respected Victor Martinez, publicly stood in Kai's corner, condemning the criticism and affirming that what he did was what anyone in a desperate situation could have done. Now, if you thought the controversies surrounding Kai Greene were limited to his personal life, get ready, because there's an equally turbulent chapter, this time inside the very structure of the sport he loved so deeply. In 2015, Kai Greene publicly stated that he had been barred from competing at the Mr. Olympia after launching his own supplement company, Dynamic Muscle. For any athlete at the peak of their career, being shut out of the biggest competition in their sport is devastating. For Kai, who had spent years relentlessly chasing that trophy, it was a blow of almost unimaginable cruelty. At the center of the conflict was a contract Kai still held with Leader Publications, the organization behind the Mr. Olympia. By launching Dynamic Muscle without formally dissolving that agreement, Kai found himself in a legal battle that spilled far beyond closed-door negotiations. Leader Publications sued him for breach of contract, and a settlement Kai proposed to resolve the situation, reportedly valued in the six figures, was rejected by the organization. What could have been settled at a negotiating table turned into an open confrontation that cost both sides dearly, but Kai most of all. What makes that episode even harder to swallow is the glaring contradiction it exposes. While Leader Publications was blocking Kai from competing under the justification of a contract breach, that same organization continued using his name and likeness to promote the Mr. Olympia. In other words, Kai couldn't compete, but his face and his legacy were still being used to sell the event. It's exactly the kind of situation that raises serious questions about how major organizations treat the athletes who helped build their reputation in the first place. That conflict cast a long shadow over what could have been the final, triumphant chapter of Kai's competitive career. In 2016, worn down by years of legal battles, personal controversy, and the accumulated frustration of never having claimed bodybuilding's ultimate title, Kai chose not to compete at that year's Mr. Olympia. For many fans, that absence felt like a quiet goodbye: no ceremony, no speech, no send-off worthy of an athlete of his magnitude standing before the crowd that had loved him so fiercely. The sum of all these factors, the controversial video, the lawsuit, the competition ban, and the string of runner-up finishes, paints a picture that many consider one of the greatest injustices in the history of modern bodybuilding. Greene gave everything to the sport: his health, his time, his dedication, and in many ways, his very soul. In return, he ran into obstacles that went far beyond anything that happened under the stage lights. And yet, even in the face of all those barriers, one thing always remained clear to anyone who followed his journey closely: Greene was never just a bodybuilder. There was a deeper dimension to his personality, one that transcended competitions and trophies entirely. And this is exactly where Kai's story starts revealing a side that most people never see coming. There's a question that tends to come up whenever people discover another dimension of his life: how does a man who spent decades building one of the most impressive physiques in the world also find the time, energy, and sensitivity to dive deep into the world of visual art? The answer, as it turns out, is both simpler and more fascinating than it might seem. For Kai, bodybuilding was never just a sport. From the very beginning, he saw it as an art form. Every muscle developed was part of a living sculpture in constant transformation. Every pose on stage was crafted as a visual composition, a way of telling a story through his own body. So when Kai started painting, drawing, and exploring other forms of artistic expression, it wasn't a change of direction. It was a natural continuation of the same vision that had always driven his career. The stage and the canvas simply switched places, but the essence stayed the same, turning discipline, emotion, and identity into something the world could see. In 2011, while still at the peak of his competitive career, Kai held his first painting exhibition, and it caught the sports world completely off guard, reaching far beyond it. His work, large-scale, expressive, and loaded with symbolism, revealed a creative depth that few people imagined existed behind that massive physique. The exhibition wasn't some bored athlete dabbling in something new. It was the public debut of a genuine artistic voice that had been present in Kai long before the bodybuilding spotlight ever found him. The people who showed up out of curiosity left with straight-up admiration. But Kai didn't want to confine his art to galleries and the white walls of formal exhibitions. He took his creative expression to the streets, to subway stations, to the everyday spaces where ordinary people move through their lives, showing up in elaborate masks and costumes, engaging with the public in spontaneous, unpredictable ways. Imagine running into that imposing, costumed, fully committed figure on the New York City subway. That was exactly the effect Kai was going for: breaking barriers, catching people off guard, sparking something, and making a real human connection. That fusion of bodybuilding and artistic expression created something the sport had rarely seen before. Kai attracted an entirely different fanbase, people who may never have watched a bodybuilding competition in their lives, but who fell in love with his worldview, his creativity, and the completely unique way he presented himself to the world. That expanded reach led to Kai being invited as a guest poser at major competitions, where his stage presence and unmistakable style stole the show with an almost effortless command of the room. Greene's artistic legacy is proof that greatness doesn't fit in a single box. He challenged the idea that a bodybuilder should be confined to the world of gyms, meal preps, and competitive stages. By embracing art with the same intensity he brought to the iron, Kai redefined what it means to be a complete athlete. When Kai decided to expand his presence beyond gyms and art galleries, the entertainment world became the next territory to conquer, and the entry point couldn't have been more fitting. His appearance in the documentary Generation Iron, released in 2013 and widely regarded as the spiritual successor to the classic Pumping Iron, the film that launched Arnold Schwarzenegger into worldwide fame back in the 70s, put Kai in the spotlight in a whole new way. The documentary showed the world not just the elite athlete, but the complex, reflective, and deeply passionate human being living behind that overwhelming physique. The impact of Generation Iron on Kai's career was immediate and significant. Audiences who had never followed a bodybuilding competition started learning his name, his story, and his unique way of seeing the sport and life itself. The international recognition the documentary brought opened doors that had once seemed out of reach, including the doors of Hollywood. Kai proved that his magnetic presence wasn't limited to the competition stage. It translated just as powerfully to cameras, interviews, and any environment where authenticity is valued. Kai's versatility as an actor became clear in the range of projects he chose to take on. In College Debts, he showed he could make people laugh, delivering a comedic performance with a natural ease that surprised anyone who expected nothing but intensity from an athlete of his caliber. Then in Crazy Fist, he flipped the script entirely, stepping into the role of the villain and tapping into a dark, intense side that fit his commanding physical presence like a glove. Two films, two completely opposite genres, and Kai moving between them without missing a beat. But it was his role in Season 2 of Stranger Things, Netflix's cultural phenomenon, that brought Kai Greene to a truly global audience. Playing the character Funshine, he stepped into one of the most watched productions in the world and delivered in a way that left both fans and critics impressed. Landing a role in Stranger Things isn't something that just happens. The show is selective, demanding, and surrounded by sky-high expectations. The fact that Kai was chosen, and that he delivered, says everything about the talent he built far beyond the walls of any gym. Kai's journey through the entertainment world is more than a list of projects and screen credits. It's a living demonstration that he never allowed himself to be defined by a single label. Bodybuilder, artist, actor, every new world he stepped into was embraced with the same seriousness and the same total commitment that always defined his relationship with the sport. But building a world-class physique demands discipline, long-term vision, and a rare ability to turn hard work into results. And as it turns out, those are the exact same qualities that make a great entrepreneur. True to his nature of never staying confined to one lane, Kai brought that same mindset into the business world with the same intensity he brought to the weights for decades. His supplement line, launched as part of his vision to build something that would outlast his athletic career, quickly became a recognized name in the fitness industry, known not just for the legend behind it, but for the quality it actually delivered. What makes Kai's business venture even more significant is the context in which it was born. Launching a supplement company while still in the middle of his competitive prime was a decision that, as we've seen, led to serious consequences with leader publications. But Kai didn't back down. He looked past the immediate conflict and bet on building something that was truly his, completely his, something that didn't need contracts, organizations, or anyone else's permission to exist. Today, Kai Greene holds a unique space in fitness culture and in sport as a whole. He isn't just a historical reference, a name that older fans recall with nostalgia. He's an active, present, and genuinely influential figure for a new generation of athletes and enthusiasts who discover his story and see themselves in it. His ability to inspire goes far beyond competition results. It's rooted in the authenticity of his journey, in the honesty with which he's always faced his battles, and in the way he has never once asked for permission to be exactly who he is. In March 2023, in an interview with Muscle Development, Kai Greene lit a flame his fans had never fully let go out. He raised the possibility of a return to the Mr. Olympia stage, the competition that always slipped through his hands despite everything he had to offer. The mere mention of that possibility was enough to send the global bodybuilding community into a frenzy. Forums, social media, and specialty channels exploded with debates, speculation, and a collective excitement that showed just how much Kai still means to this sport. Do you think he should come back? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And with that, we've reached the end of this journey, but before we close, it's worth taking a moment to step back and look at everything we've covered together. From an orphan boy in Brooklyn, through foster homes, financial hardship, controversy, legal battles, runner-up heartbreaks, and reinventions, Kai Greene's story resists any attempt at a simple summary. Because it's not just about bodybuilding. It's about what a human being is capable of building when they make a conscious, unshakable decision not to be defined by what the world tried to make them. Resilience is a word we throw around a lot, but rarely do we see it applied with as much depth as in Kai's journey. He didn't just survive adversity. He turned it into raw material. Every rejection became motivation, every obstacle became a stepping stone, every controversy became an opportunity to show the world who he truly was on the inside. Kai Greene is living proof that difficult circumstances don't determine your destiny, they only test the resolve of those who are willing to push past them. And Kai always pushed past them. No exceptions, no excuses, no asking for permission. Perhaps what's most remarkable about his story is the capacity for reinvention he's demonstrated throughout his entire life. In a world that insists on putting people in boxes, Kai always declined that invitation. Bodybuilder on the stage, artist in the gallery, actor on screen, entrepreneur behind the scenes, and an inspiration everywhere he goes. Each new chapter of his life didn't erase the one before it, it built on it, adding another layer to a rare and genuine human mosaic that continues to captivate people from all walks of life, all around the world. His legacy is already written, and it goes far beyond trophies and titles. Kai Greene inspired entire generations to see sport as a tool for personal transformation, art as an extension of the soul, and obstacles as an inevitable and necessary part of any great story. Young athletes who train today with his poster on the wall aren't just admiring an incredible physique. They're drawing from a mindset, a way of approaching life that says, loud and clear, it doesn't matter where you come from. What matters is where you decide to go. And so we've reached the end of this video, but Kai Greene's story is far from its final chapter. With the possibility of a return to the Mr. Olympia still in the air, his influence growing every year, and an energy that simply refuses to fade, who knows what the Predator still has in store for the world. One thing is certain, wherever Kai Greene shows up, he shows up fully, with everything he has and everything he is. And that, when all is said and done, is the greatest legacy anyone can leave behind. If this story inspired you, share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next one.